The Devil's Bridge, released 1968. Directed by Andrew V. McLaggen. Written by William Roberts, Robert H. Albin, and George Walton. I love a opening credits that's stylized, especially when it spoils the end of the movie. We see the leader ask Cliff Robinson if he has any combat experience. He says no, but he sure likes cussing and bossing people around. Animal cruelty check. Learned that Vince Edwards, one of the main generals, has been to 9 different camps, so he has much more experience than Cliff Robinson. When the army men first get off the train, they start roughhousing like a bunch of drunken fools. That sets the tone for this film. Cliff Robinson's like, we need to send these people back right now. They're not sophisticated enough to be in army. And the main general is like, have you never been to a college football game? They are still able to line up the army men though. The men start fighting right when they wake up, and the fighting doesn't stop until they hear the bagpipes, and they all make immature comments like, look at those skirts. I'm just kidding. They all greatly respect the men playing the bagpipes. At first, Cliff Robinson starts being very dignified with how he treats the soldiers. The army men start having some immature humor, like the bagpipes sounding like his girlfriend's queefing. Next, we get a very dignified scene when we see Cliff Rogers talk to one of the army men, and we learn that one of the army men grabbed the girlfriend from one of the generals. I really like this scene because it shows that they're not doing high school games anymore. He's now an 18-year-old soldier. And this movie treats a lot of the army men as individuals. I think the army men had better food than they had historically in this film, but I'm not sure about that. Next, we see a scene where they put a snake in the redhead's bed because they think the redhead's a bit fruity. I like how this movie acknowledges the dark side army that was against gay people joining in a real and goofy way that doesn't break the tone of the film. The army men start going through trials, like going through very deep water. I like how they do the very deep water first, until we get to the shallow water later. It really shows the realism of how rough it is to be in the army. Next, one of the Aryan complain about being in the deep water. I like this scene because it even says terms like the wrath of God. He is very pretentious in this scene. And of course, the general doesn't give a shit about what he says because it's all about preparing them for army. If you're not prepared to go into deep water, then you're not prepared for getting shot. Next, we go back to the cafeteria where we meet this eccentric gentleman with his kung fu karate skills. I also like the scene where we have not a good idea of what they're talking about. We don't know who disobeyed the general's orders. This is just a piece of real conversation. That the eccentric red-headed kung fu master is here, fighting around is more accepted, but it's more organized now. The next scene, they're tested to walk in skis as they move up to Germany. Go into the bars of Germany, where the women are seen as objects, date around and have fun. The danger of this is they could be having fun with the Germans' girlfriends. They had no women in the army in World War II. This is a factual film. I'm not criticizing the sexism here. Now they are no longer fighting just soldiers. They are now fighting random people in German bars. What the hell is going on in this object treating scene? Ridiculous realism, everybody. This movie is so real that before patriotism, we have a drinking scene that's completely pointless. Unless a bit of realism is the point, then it is not pointless. Next, we see scene William Holden talks about all his mistakes in different camps. He says, you know why I have 9 stars? Because I made 9 mistakes in 9 different camps. I really like the realism here, how even the biggest star in this movie is also a bit of a failure. By the way, I think he keeps the 9 stars in his closet. Also, Christmas appears to be a common theme in Andrew V. McLagan's war films because that also happens in The Wild Geese. Next, Cliff Robinson talks to the overseer of the army, and he says, "You men are not prepared enough." And then Cliff Robinson says, "The army is never prepared for what's going to happen." Overseer agrees with him, saying that the army has no luggage. They drink and go to the Italian front. They go into the water using their training, and the shoes are so good that when they walk across the water, there's no slipping. Next, we go into another train scene, which is humation. They have the army men wear just towels and climb up the roof. I like this edit of the cutting the egg and then the segue to a man getting punched in the face. It shows that now being army and being punched in the face is now just everyday part of life, like cutting an egg. They start celebrating just for fun before they even planned out their plan for the war. Next, they go up the mountains, and this was all real. This is incredible that all these actors did this. They are both actors who want to have big careers and actors who went on to have not so big careers. Also, in an earlier scene, Cliff Robinson said we can't make any mistakes because of his lack of experience. Well, Cliff Robinson, do you not know what war is? See a bunch of very real looking shooting, and for censorship reasons and because I want you to see this movie for yourself, I'm not going to show you it. So the movie ends with a lot of death because in war, not everybody who's a part of the same team wins. But this is pretty good for a battle, the amount of people that are alive. That's The Devil's Bridge. This is a great, very real war movie with some fun moments with the drunken acting or the foolish acting army men. And Cliff Robinson is great at playing this dignified leader that has little experience. This is a great movie that I highly recommend. Bye.